The China Aerospace Science and Technology Corporation has been very busy carrying out 39 launches in 2020. Sending 89 spacecraft into space, only second to US launch providers who flew 44 missions. Now there is a new space race between the USA and China, and the big prize is Mars. Just like NASA and SpaceX, China has announced its plans to send astronauts to Mars. And they also have plans to build a base on the Moon. Will China overtake NASA and the rest of the world when it comes to space exploration? Let's find out. China recently sent a robotic spacecraft on a mission to Red Planet called Tianwen-1. The probe had an orbiter, a lander, and a rover named Zhurong. It carried 13 different scientific instruments with it, and is one of the heaviest spacecraft ever sent to Mars, weighing almost 5 tons. Tianwen-1 arrived at Mars on February 10, 2021, and started to look for a good place to land the rover. On May 14, 2021, the Tianwen-1 orbiter released the lander with the rover on board, and it landed safely on the planet's surface. This made China the only other country besides the USA to orbit, land, and release a rover onto the surface of Mars. Here's a cute selfie of the rover, showing the colors we're all used to seeing on the surface of the red planet. The rover is only intended to explore the planet's surface for just 3 months. China is the second country to succeed on Mars, and China has done in a single go what NASA took decades to do. But is China actually copying what NASA and SpaceX are doing to get to the top? In 2019, a small Chinese rocket was launched from an inland spaceport. Images popped up on social media showing small grid fins attached to the upper section of a Long March 2C rocket for the first time. And they seem to be virtually identical to the fins that SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket used to steer and land on its ocean-based drone ships. China also wants to make its Long March 8 booster reusable like the Falcon 9, and there's a lot of Chinese companies which have announced plans to develop reusable rockets. For example, there is Link Space with its Jianghan-1 launch vehicle, which some say looks a little like the Falcon 9 booster, and Galactic Energy developing its Pallas 1 launch vehicle that will be equipped with 7 Welkin reusable kerosene engines, together generating an astounding 280 tons of thrust at sea level. It should be worth noting that China produces everything for its space program on its own, which may be why the country is moving up so fast in the business of space exploration. NASA, on the other hand, has help from the European Space Agency and the Canadian Space Agency. China has been up to a whole lot more in space than just putting a rover on Mars. In January 2019, China landed a probe on the far side of the Moon. This was the country's second successful moon landing after landing a small rover on the Moon that's still sending back data. In December 2020, China sent another craft to the Moon, the Chang'e 5, that grabbed 4 pounds of rocks and soil near a place called Mons Rumka, and then brought the samples back to Earth for study. This was the first time that lunar samples were brought back since the Soviet Union's Luna 24 mission back in 1976. But what about getting astronauts back on the Moon? So far, only the American Apollo programs have put people on the Moon, but that may soon change. China wants to get manned missions to the Moon through the late 2020s. This is because Earth's neighbor is a hot commodity, and there are precious metals to be mined on the Moon. And helium-3, which has the potential to be used in future nuclear fusion power plants. There is very little helium-3 available on Earth, making the Moon a potential gold mine. The big question is, how will we get it from the Moon and back to Earth? On March 9th, 2021, the China National Space Administration made an announcement that along with the Russian Roscosmos, the two countries would build a base on the Moon called the International Lunar Research Station, where astronauts from any country could be invited to conduct experiments, scientific research, and explore the Moon. Moreover, China has already built a spacecraft to take astronauts there. But Mars is the new prize for the new space race. China wants to start sending crewed missions to Mars and deploy a massive commercial-scale solar power plant by the year 2050. We wish them the best of luck. This also means that China might benefit from having their own space station, and it looks like they got that covered. The International Space Station is nearing the end of its life expectancy in 2024. What happens after this is uncertain, but Russia says its people will leave the station in 2025. And at the same time, China isn't allowed there. Now China is building a new space station too. In April 2021, the Chinese Space Agency launched the Tian module, which is the living quarters for crew members and permanent part of the new Tiangong station. Beijing has planned 10 more launches to put all the other modules into orbit and complete building the station by 2022. By comparison, it took 42 launches to get the International Space Station up in orbit. And this is what the Chinese space station will look like when it's completed. And China says that all nations will be invited. Aside from getting the space station built, there's also 30+ more launches planned, including 13 manned spacecraft. But even though China seems to be outpacing NASA in the space race, the rest of the world believe the country to be careless, and that it could create more problems in the future. Take, for example, the launch of its first space station module. The Long March 5B rocket booster that was used was floating around in orbit and ready to fall back to Earth. The problem is that there was nothing to control this booster, which weighs 21 metric tons. NASA criticized China, but they said there's no chance of the booster landing in a populated place. And the booster did free fall and land in the Indian Ocean without harming anyone. But in 2020, pieces of another rocket reportedly slammed into inhabited villages off the Ivory Coast. Thankfully, no one was injured. But China isn't finished sending rockets up and just launched a Long March 7 rocket carrying the automated Tianzhou 2 spacecraft, which carried 6.8 tons of cargo, including spacesuits, food, and equipment for astronauts, headed to the new Chinese space station and docked with the Tian module. In June 2021, China will send 3 astronauts to the space station. China might end up being the leader in the space race and may make it to Mars before NASA. But there are many things to overcome, and a trip to Mars can take 7 months to get there, and no one knows the effects it will have on an astronaut's physical and mental well-being. But these are things that the Chinese Space Agency is surely working on. China has even more ambitious projects in the works, and there are 3 more moon probes already planned by 2027 that have rovers, a flying probe, and even some experiments with 3D printing in space. If you want to keep updated and hear more about that stuff, make sure you stay tuned here. Thanks for watching.